Welcome to the Start Something Show. Join world-renowned experts, change agents, and everyday folks who have done the amazing. All here to help you start something incredible. Now it's time to step out, live your perfect day, and create a legacy with your host, Tina Dietz.
Well, hey there, my lovelies. Welcome to the Start Something Show. This is Tina Dietz, and I am just really happy to be here and be here with you today. And that's why I'm singing. But I like to sing all the time. It's something that people around me happen to know, that I am the type of person who just tends to randomly break out into song. And it kind of goes along with the whole deal around me, really loving a microphone. So, put me in front of karaoke. I don't even need a drink. I will randomly break out into song in public. Fortunately, I can carry a tune. So that makes things a little bit better. That's your random fact about Tina today here on the Start Something Show. You heard it first. Well, today on the show, we're going to be talking goal achievement and business consulting with Mr. Pete Winiarski. I love this guy. He's such a great dude. Pete and I have hung out together on several occasions, and I really love and respect his work. He's gone from being a solo business consultant in the corporate world to having a really robust agency called Win Enterprises. And now he also teaches business people to become business consultants in their own right, which, if you're not familiar with this little factoid, business consulting is a booming industry. It is growing like crazy as more and more companies start to bring in outside experts to train people and to consult rather than having in-house departments to do that. It's more cost effective for most companies, and they also can pick and choose then a variety of people from different backgrounds and types of expertise to really serve their company the best possible way. So if you are interested in being a business consultant, or you're interested in making sure you reach your goals, I think that's pretty much all of us fall into one of those categories, if not both, you will really enjoy this conversation that we're going to have with Pete today. And a quick note just before we get to that, some very, very exciting news happening here at Start Something. And that is, you're the first to hear it, I am announcing a new move. We are going to be starting a new show, and we're going to be doing this on Blab. If you're not familiar with Blab, it is a live video platform. Every time I say the word Blab, I feel a little silly, but it is an awesome platform that is going to allow us to take our shows live every week and is going to have live interaction where you can come on and talk with me, talk with our experts, ask questions. Maybe we'll even bring you in into the conversation as well. And you'll be able to join us on video. You'll be able to watch the recordings on the website or on YouTube. And you'll also still be able to listen to the podcast on iTunes. So we'll have a lot more flexibility for you. And the name of the new show, we're bringing the Start Something Show to a close because it was our inaugural show for the company. And, it was only meant to be a year-long season. So we're going to finish it off at 50 episodes and then launch our new show, which is called Creative Business Oasis, so that we can deepen our main themes here at Start Something, which are creativity and business. So those are the two things we love to talk about the most. I know I love to talk about the most. And how to be creative in your business, how to keep the creativity going in your business, and how to creatively solve problems and produce results in your business. So there'll be more information coming for you about that. We don't have the website set up quite yet, but if you head on over to thestartsomethingshow.com, if you are not signed up to be a super starter, which is our free membership, go ahead and make sure that you're on that list. Go and grab all those free gifts that we have for you, like the Perfect Day Planner Pack and our article library. And we got some other really cool things in that free membership for you. And then you'll also be the first to know when those shows get scheduled. And we have the new website up for Creative Business Oasis. So very exciting news. I'm really thrilled. And I love to interact with folks live and make sure that we're providing really high value. And this new platform is going to allow us to do just that. So any questions, feel free to head over to the contact us page at thestartsomethingshow.com and drop us a line, or you can reach us on social media too, everywhere. Happy to hook you up when the time comes. Let's go talk to Pete, and we're going to talk about some goal achievement and how to become a business consultant. Pete Winiarski is joining us today on the show, and we are going to dive into the topic of goal achievement. Pete is the founder and CEO of Wind Enterprises, a management consulting and results coaching firm, as well as the co-founder of the Business Consultant Institute. Pete has been a guest expert pretty much everywhere, ABC, NBC, pick an acronym, Fox, and he's the best-selling author of Act Now, a daily action log for achieving your goals in 90 days, which helps both businesses and individuals to be action-oriented and achieve their goals. Hallelujah. Thanks for starting something with me today.
I'm loving it already. This sounds cool.
Yeah, I know. You sound great, don't you?
Yeah, who is this guy? Thanks for the intro.
Oh, Pete, I've had your book since it's published, because I was actually looking at the time for some tools to dovetail with the work I was doing with my clients in goal achievement, and I don't like to reinvent the wheel. So your book for a couple of years now has been one that I've recommended to my clients. I'm extra special excited to have you on the show.
Oh, super. Yeah, I'm glad that someone's using it and getting some huge benefit out of it, I'm hoping.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's go, let's dive into, who you are and what you do. And before we get to the current stuff, how did you decide to become an entrepreneur? What made you want to start something?
Well, I had the bug. I was out in the corporate world, and I had the job titles progressing up the food chain like many of us climbing the corporate ladder do. And all along my corporate career, I had different responsibilities where I was responsible for either training or teaching people to apply new thinking and new methodologies, facilitated a lot of project improvement teams. And so I had the bug for helping people. I had the bug along the line also. I had worked with and had become a fan listening to some of his audio programs way back when of Jack Canfield, who has subsequently I've gotten quite close to. But back at that time, I was listening to what it sounded like for a professional trainer and a professional transformation person to actually have impact on people. And so those were kind of in the back of my mind. Early in my career, I had studied and worked with Dr. Deming, who Dr. W. Edwards Deming was a famous statistician who really had a huge impact in how manufacturing companies, and then especially in Japan, took off and did what they did. And I had some exposure to he as a consultant. So I had all of these different attributes of consulting that were part of what I was doing as I was in my management role. And I think it was just a matter of time that I did break out on my own. And part of that, by the way, Tina, and this is really important, I experienced consulting as an employee of McKinsey Consulting, which was for 5 years of my career in between some of my other corporate job roles. So I knew what it was like to be to play that role in a big company. And it was just a matter of time before I broke out and launched it on my own.
Well, that makes complete sense. It's funny you mentioned Dr. Deming. His one of his quotes lived at the bottom of a previous website of mine for many years. 94% of failure is the result of the system, not the people.
That's right.
Yeah. So I can see where that would really fit in with the management consulting and all side of things. Let's clarify something for our audience, because this is a question I get a lot, and I'd love to hear your take on it. What really is the difference between consulting and coaching, in your view?
Love it. The way that I would answer this question, and this is an important distinction, is that coaching is a critical skill that is important for all consultants to have. It is the process of asking the right types of questions to enable some self-discovery. And there are times as a consultant that is the exact approach that makes the most sense for the highest impact with your client. A consultant, though, goes beyond just that and also has some level of expertise. And that expertise sometimes needs to be dropped in, and you are expected to be able to really apply that expertise to help your client break out of their problem or situation. And so coaching is, in my mind, a subset of what consulting is. And whereas consulting, you are getting engaged with your client's processes, situations, problems, and then sometimes applying coaching methodologies to help self-discovery. Other times you are absolutely dropping in and doing the work, so to speak, as a way to help the client gain some really quick knowledge and then move the needle so that they can get the results they need.
That makes complete sense now. Okay. So a bit more of, in consulting, there's more of the doing to be done.
There's
in many cases.
Yeah. And in fact, as a consultant, you can play the role of an advisor and be really light touch and give advice and then maybe get out of the way, or ask questions the way a coach would and then get out of the way. Or you can go to the other end of the extreme, which is done for you type programs where you're just taking over a piece of what they need to do in their business. What our consulting company does is actually a lot of done with you, which is we're applying our expertise that might not be something that's resident in your company. And while we're working with you, we're teaching you what we're doing, and we're teaching you the principles, and we're making sure that you then are expanding your knowledge base on your team so that you can then start to do some of the things, essentially working ourselves out of the job, so to speak. And the reality is the job is so big
Right,
that it just continues and continues, whether at that client or other clients. But there's a blend of how a consultant could choose to provide the services and do what they do. And some of those approach what coaches might look like, but others are way more intense.
Right. Now you have a consulting firm, so you have a number of people on your team that you work with. Was that something you started with, or did you start out as a solo and then build your team later?
Oh boy, I was the one person company for a while, and that was an interesting story because as a one person company, you can choose to be out working with clients, or you could choose to do the business development to try and find the next client, or you could choose to do the admin work, like invoice the client for the work you just did. And it's really a trick to figure out which hat am I wearing at this moment in order to do all of the work that needs to get done to satisfy the clients you have, to get the next clients, essentially in your funnel lined up so that you know who you're working with next when this project ends. You can really work with one client at a time effectively, unless you had multiple light touch clients, which sometimes works. But it's a trick when you're a one-person company. And I'll tell you, Tina, as where we are now with a team and with a whole roster of consultants out working, it was an evolution that there were a couple buckets of cold water that were required for me to snap out of, like, oh my goodness, I can't just keep going like this.
Well, I often ask my folks on the show to share a failure, or an epic failure, even better, something that, you bounce back and, obviously this is where we have the most amount of learning. But, so many folks out there, they really fear the failure portion of things, and it stops people from playing big. So we'll find it helpful that folks like you sharing your experience, kind of from, the other side of this startup phase of things. So does anything come to mind? You got a juicy story?
Only one? Are you kidding?
That's usually the response I get.
Yeah. I early on, there's one that really comes to mind, which is, this was at a point in time where, as a single person company, as a consultant, I was thinking about one particular client. In fact, I was aligning myself with, as a contractor to another consulting company, and that company was bought. So I had a role, and that consulting company was acquired by another business. And so instantly, overnight, work that represented 2/3 of my revenue disappeared. And that was a wake-up call. That was one of those big buckets of ice cold water. And it was, in that moment, am I going to reside comfortably being my own company, yet still somewhat acting as part of someone else's thing? Or am I going to take my own business seriously? That was a big learning. Another learning, just because I can keep going with lots of lessons I learned and save everyone else lots of pain.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I hope I can help people do that. There was a client situation that I was pursuing, and when it hit, it was going to turn into probably the next 9 months of work for me, which is really great. Everyone wants to have the next, especially when you're just starting out, that much visibility for revenue coming in and where you'd be working and all that. And all the signals were really strong that it would be an absolute thumbs up. And then at the end, it all fell apart because internally their management team couldn't get aligned with what they wanted to do. And that was it. It was done. And I had exactly zero funnel outside of that. And so while I had been spending some time investing in this particular relationship, it then didn't get off the ground. And then it left me with zero revenue and zero revenue projections in the near future. So that's a tough one. I mean, that's one of those conversations I can still remember, freaking out for about 24 hours and then, taking a deep breath and saying, okay, I'm going to approach this differently and I'm going to go, make some calls and see what I can create. And the calls that I made, Tina, were to people I knew in my network. And the conversation was very simple. I just had some capacity free up that I didn't expect. So I have some availability. Do you or someone have the need for the services I provide? And I wasn't making that call, Tina, at all to anybody. And so this now forced me into a mode where I was making that call. And guess what happened? I started to fill it. I started to have work. I started to have revenue coming in. So, I think that the internal self-talk was, oh, don't do that. Don't be asking for people to help you or whatever. Some silliness, which
we have that
truly
500-pound phone syndrome that happens sometimes.
Oh my goodness!
But this "what do you know? Who do you know?" game, as we call it, is one of the most powerful ways to be in communication, because we can sit behind a computer all day long, but there's nothing as effective as picking up the phone.
Yeah, and those two things really were the moments where I said, all right, it's time to take this a little bit more seriously, as opposed to just having this be, when a client comes along, I'll take care of them. And otherwise I'll have this other company, plug me into their clients. It was, who do I really want to be when I grow up here? Do I want to just be, someone else's resource, or do I want to step forward and make a difference? And so it was time.
So now kind of as your company, your firm has been around for a while. You've got this team now that's all working consultants out in the field. What piece of advice would you have? Like, what if you were, talking to folks who were either budding consultants, and we'll talk about the Institute in a minute because I want to ask you about that. Mm-hmm. People who are either budding consultants or they are that one man or one woman show. At what point should they be looking to get outside help to help them fill the top of their funnel, as it were, or to generate leads, or when do you make that decision? Because it is so hard to try to be the ringmaster when you're also the ticket taker and the dog trainer and the lion tamer and the trapeze artist at the same time,
and the one who swallows fire,
and the clowns on occasion. Yes,
that's right. I'll tell you that each person has to decide that on their own, but I think the signals will be, Am I able to get all of the work done or not? Am I risking my sanity or not?
That's a good question.
I'll tell you, Tina, I wasn't invoicing clients, for like a month after I did the work because I was, busy.
Yeah.
That was my signal to say, gee, Pete, maybe I ought to get somebody in here to help with some of the basic admin stuff, which was huge the day that I did it because it became, what was I waiting for? That's what you hear more than anything else. Granted, what's a little bit frightening is you start adding staff, even if they're contractors, you now feel a responsibility to make sure that they're fed. You have to have revenue that takes care of them. I mean, if you
That's
go
very
out,
true.
you want to put yourself into an office. We've got rent now because we have a team of people here in an office. So now we've got rent that we've got to be working for. So now we have overhead. So, the big conversation is, do you want to have no overhead and no expenses and do it all yourself? Or, and this is a magic word, leverage. How much could you leverage if you started to get other people plugged in? Maybe had an office space and had everyone working together to be more productive and effective as a team. And in my experience, I think people who have the courage to make that decision, they thrive to backfill what they are creating. It's a really interesting phenomenon. Up until the point that you have an employee, you do just fine as a one-person company. And then as soon as you make the decision to expand, suddenly it's like, holy cow, we have to step up our game in order to thrive. And then you do step up your game and you go beyond what you thought was possible.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important distinction. It's has a flavor, a little bit of a flavor. Both of us are parents of, all of a sudden there's this other person, and you just step into that responsibility. It's like, oh, no, this isn't a matter of if this is going to happen. It's how is this going to happen? Because it's going to happen,
right?
And it does. It's a great, in one sense, it's a great way to kind of push your boundaries and expand. And in another sense, there is the sanity question that we always come back to.
That's a pretty good gauge. If you're having a tough time holding it all together, that's a pretty good sign that something needs to be different in your systems and processes. And maybe you don't have systems and processes, and that's the problem. Sometimes we're working so hard with our head down, just trying to get work done, that we're not paying attention to, some real basics. As consultants, sometimes our toughest client is ourselves. Just follow the things that work for other people, man. Your life will become easy quickly.
Yeah. I have to ask myself on a regular basis, if I were my own client, what would I tell myself to do?
Yeah.
Because that internal mirror is not always the easiest to face.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you built a successful firm, you had a best-selling book, and now you have co-founded the Business Consultant Institute. Like, what made you want to jump off into this other venture, besides the fact that we're entrepreneurs and we're nuts?
Yeah, entrepreneurs certainly are nuts. And this goes back to the same type of an answer as the other question, with the consulting business, which was, it was in my blood for a while. And what I mean by that is I can, having been part of a big consulting machine at McKinsey for 5 years and seeing what big consulting is like, and then going off as an entrepreneur and doing it myself, this phenomenon happened, which was people would reach out to me who are either starting or maybe have been consultants for a while but were struggling with something, and ask me basic questions like, how do you do that? How do you get clients? How do you some of the questions you're asking, how do you know when to add staff, that type of thing? What do you charge for fees? And I started to realize that, first of all, that's the market talking. That's a customer base who are, describing what their customer needs are. And so, for one, it's, interesting. There's something here. People want and need this training because they don't have access to it elsewhere. But then secondly, it fits in really nicely to what we're doing as a consulting business, because we've figured it out. We've cracked the code on how to survive, and we've cracked the code on how to thrive as a consulting business. We're growing nicely. people want to know how we did that. How did you grow this successful firm? And my partner on this, Terry Levine, interestingly, had some of the same revelations about the consulting industry, that there's a lot of people who want to be consultants and don't have a clue how to get started. And so we combined our forces, and what we're just now seeing, which is really exciting, is that there are a lot of people who are entrepreneurs who maybe have had clients and have been their coach and want to expand beyond coaching into consulting. Or maybe they are people who are even business owners who realize that, well, goodness, if I could add a consulting service line, I can actually get my clients to use my products and services so much better that they can get more out of this. There's all kinds of people now who can actually turn into consultants almost overnight, but they need some training, they need some exposure, and we can provide that. Now, let me say this, which is critical. There are a lot of consultants, independent consultants and consulting businesses that are a little bit bigger than the one-person show. And Tina, they're not doing a good job. They're not doing a good job for themselves, and they're not doing a good job for their clients.
How do you see the central failings that's happening in the industry?
Well, for one, the conversation that we hear over and over again is there's a company who clearly has some struggles, and you start talking to them about the types of things you could do to help them break free, and they say, well, I don't know. We hired a consultant last year, and here's what they had us do, and it didn't work. And so there's those consultants out there who are giving the industry somewhat of a bad name because they're not effective. And then the other type of way that it's not working is they're killing themselves. They're frustrated, they're aggravated, they're stressed. And there's no need for that. I mean, you could be a thriving consulting business without all of that stress if you knew how to go and position yourself and get clients and make a difference. And then you knew how to be a super performer inside of your client company and help them to thrive. So part of what we want to do is kind of fix that. We want to fix it so that people who decide to be consultants aren't struggling, for one, and they can be really impactful and effective so that companies in the world recognize that consultants are a good thing. Because when there's a good one out there, they're going to hire you again, and they're going to tell everyone about you. When there's a bad one out there and they have a bad experience, they're probably going to shut down for a while and not trust the industry.
Yeah, that's very true. Are you familiar with the movie Office Space?
Oh, sure.
One of my favorite movies. I actually just rewatched it more recently, and I love the moment they say, they brought in the consultants, and everyone's freaking out, right? There's this whole story about what consultants do. So yeah, right. I think that's really mirrored in some of the pop culture. But the consulting industry and the demand for the consulting industry, I did a little digging on the numbers here in the U.S. It's growing.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's growing a lot. And what do you, two-part question, what do you attribute that to? And are you seeing the need for consultants in specific areas of business more than others?
Well, I think it's growing all over the place because people are starting to recognize that they don't have to try and do it all themselves. It's becoming more acceptable to ask for help. I think that there's a lot of individual, that rugged individual manager who thumps their chest and can just take it all on their own shoulders and fight through with brute force. Hopefully, is a thing that's starting to go away. Brute force as a leadership style or even a management style to get things done.
We actually call that a management style.
I just
do we have to acknowledge that?
No, we don't. You know what it is? It's not a chosen style, but it's the fallback position because we don't know what else to do. We're stuck. We say, oh my goodness. I mean, this is what happens. I lived in the corporate world for a long time for publicly traded companies that stock price matters and all that, and you better hit your quarter, otherwise you're in big trouble. And so. What would happen in our business, for example, our division, we were part of a bigger division which was then part of a bigger company, and some other part of the company would budget forecast that they were going to miss their budget by so much, and then we were always pretty good at performing, and so we would get the the pleasure of having to make up the gap. And so,
delightful. Yes.
delightful indeed, because what generally happened is you had to squeeze now out of, we set our plans and our budgets based on things that were in place, and we would put processes, and we would very systematically build capability to make the next level of performance, whatever that might be. And you keep stretching beyond. I'm a believer in stretch goals. You've got my book. You understand that.
Oh, yes. Same here.
Having some stretch goals is important, but stretching beyond the system's capacity over and over and over again is like overstretching a rubber band. It won't be able to snap back ever again. So, people end up saying, well, how am I going to get this done? And they find a way. You can brute force your way to any goal in the short term. And that's what tends to happen as the predominant path. So back to where consulting now fits in, there's got to be a better way. And if you don't know what that better way is, a lot of managers do not have the skill level, emotional intelligence level, or whatever, to really engage their full team to come up with creative answers on their own. And even those that do, that might be a slow process. If there's a better way, and there's a consultant with expertise who can look at your processes and help you get there fast, with the speed of business today, that's the better way to go. And that's what people realize.
Being able to pivot quickly.
Absolutely.
And implement change and get things going. All right. So I want to make sure that we at least have time here to touch a little bit more on goal setting, because I find this whole area of consulting and coaching and, what industry actually needs, because there's such an opportunity for folks who are in the business side of things, helping professions, folks who are looking to transition out of a 9-to-5 job and into more of a consulting position, and they don't know where to turn. So I'm fascinated that you and Terry have created this institute. Terry, of course, is one of my favorite all-time guests on the show, Terry Levine.
Very cool.
She was one of my first guests on the show. So I'm very excited that the two of you have partnered up. And what is the website for people who want to find out more about the Institute? Where should we send them?
Yeah, businessconsultantinstitute.com. And in addition to that, businessconsultantevent.com, where we're starting to have some live events.
That's right. You had one in Pennsylvania, and you've got another one coming up in San Diego in early spring, right?
Yeah, April in San Diego. Perfect
April
time
in
of
San
year.
Diego sounds like a great time to be in San Diego.
Yes, all your listeners need to be there.
All right, cool. And we'll make sure that that link is live on your show page at thestartsomethingshow.com as well, as with everything we talked about today. So I know that in the backstage pass of our show today, we're going to be going into the 5 C's of goal achievement. But let's, if you have here just a couple more minutes, could you go over like your favorite one of those 5 for folks who are out there looking to become more effective in achieving their goals?
My favorite of the 5 C's?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, without describing the whole model, I'll really say that in order to achieve any goal you set, there's a level of commitment required, and that C is a bonus C because it's not even on the 5. So how's that for number 6?
Oh, sneaky bonus C.
Yeah. So, essentially, you've got to decide that this is important enough to you that you're going to go after it in the first place. I'm not talking about the smaller goals. Let me use this one as a real example, because I've solved this one before, and I'm not solving it at the moment, and it comes down to level of commitment, and that is my waistline.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we all step on a scale on occasion, and there's a number that shows up, and many of us don't like the number that they see. And I've cracked this one before. I've had this is one of my goal achievement stories where I was weighing in at 200 and said, "Oh my God, I want to be 185," and that's quite a gap to drop. I set to achieve that by December 31st, and on December 31st, I weighed in at 187. I didn't hit the 185, but my goodness, I went from 200 to 187, And then 1 week later, hit 185. And
during the holiday season, kudos.
During the holiday season, this was back in
Well done.
2000. Oh my goodness, 2009, end of 2009, and so it was an amazing feat that carried with it some dedication and commitment. And right now, I'm at 200, and I'm saying, gee, wouldn't it be nice to get to 185 because my pants are tight again and all that we experienced when we're bigger than we want to be. And I am not following with the same level of commitment as I did 6 years ago. What I'm eating and the level of exercise is not there. It's really, you can say that sure, there's age that factors in, and unfortunately there's probably some level of truth to that, but not to the level I'm going to erase that from the conversation. And
Sure.
I want to say that it's about commitment. The level of commitment I had before was way more intense to the level of commitment I have now. So just using that as a seed to plant for you to think about, what's the goal that you're after? Is it to write a bestseller book? Is it to launch a new business line that you haven't launched before and to turn that into a 7-figure business? Whatever it might be for you, how committed are you to making that happen? And that level of commitment, I would say, is a prerequisite to then making everything else fall in place.
There we go. And in terms of the commitment that we have, would you say that the commitment that you are more committed to other things currently than you are currently to 15-pound weight loss?
Yeah. When you think of, that's a great question, because when you think about what we do in our lives and how we choose to spend our time, it is all about choice. I mean, this book, Act Now, is about our choice of the different actions that we're taking. And you can choose to sit in front of the television and watch the football game, or you can choose to get the extra hour of sleep, which is more important to you right now. You can choose what you're going to eat when you're traveling on the road, in hotels, and sometimes the easier answer, because you're hungry, is to just grab whatever's there and quick. But what's the commitment level to where you want to be? So it is about choices. And as you look at your array of goals, this is why it's important to have a sense in your life of balance across what's important to you, and then set goals in each of those areas, so that you can feel like you're making holistic progress as opposed to progress in a vacuum, that you are successul in spite of other parts of your life.
Yeah.
The last thing we want to do is
that's not what we want.
Here we are in the Start Something show. We don't want people starting new businesses as an entrepreneur, getting all excited and ending up not seeing their family. That doesn't work.
No,
right?
it doesn't work at all.
That's not what we're telling you to do. We want you to be successful on both fronts.
Exactly. Pete, I'm really excited about continuing this conversation and digging in some more to the 5 C's of goal achievement on the Backstage Pass. Thank you so much for joining me here on the show today.
I'm ready.
All right. Awesome. All right, super starters. Check out your level of commitment. And what are you committed to? Are you committed to certain things more and leaving other things by the wayside? And the things that you say you want, if you were to take a look at that and say, does that 15-pound weight loss, or does that way of taking care of myself actually serve my business goals? Does it actually serve my relationship goals? Does it serve my financial goals? And I guarantee you can find the bridge between the two to make yourself more effective. Take a look at that, and also come on over to the startsomethingshow.com and check out our elite membership, where you can get all of the Backstage Pass interviews from all of our members, as well as tools, templates, support, mini courses, videos, and all kinds of good stuff to help you always and forever stay on this path to starting and growing your business and your business oasis. We will see you next week, and we'll see you anytime on the startsomethingshow.com.
Start something with purpose. Start something with freedom. Start something now. Go to thestartsomethingshow.com, join our community of superstarters, and get your perfect day planner pack, a free resource to help you create the life you've dreamed of living. Take action now, and we'll see you for our next exciting episode.